Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ultimate Show. I'm Ben,
And I'm James, guys.
and welcome back to the 2018 season. Sorry we didn't get a preseason prediction video out there for you, but I tell you, where does the time go? No idea.
Yes.
I mean, there's still snow on the ground up here in Minnesota, so I mean, it doesn't really feel like ultimate season. So, what can I say? But we did have two AUDL games over the course of the last week. So if James, you want to take control of that South Division game.
Yes, I do. For those of you who watched Stadium, there was the ADL game of the week last week, as we do have a TV deal with them. The Raleigh Flyers versus the moved Tampa Bay Cannons. They were in Jacksonville, but they moved over to Tampa Bay, which was a very fun game. They were in Raleigh. Raleigh pulled out the victory. We got to see a lot of returning members as well as Misha Freystarter playing his former team as a part of in the Raleigh Flyer jersey. We got to see the debut of Jacob Fairfax. Well, not the debut, but he was definitely a bit better than he was last year. He's got a total of 8 goals, 8 points in that game. So, MVP stat right there. Well, not MVP stat yet, but very great stat in its own right. But Jacksonville, they kept fighting. They kept bringing within like 1, 2, 3, but they just couldn't get over the hump. I think not having Misha Freystarter is going to be a big issue for them because that was someone they were used to throwing the disc up to. But they do have Bobby Lay playing this season, who was a very big factor for them last season, a definite reason they made the playoffs last season. It'll be interesting to see what Tampa Bay can do. I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but this game was no surprise to anyone that Raleigh won. They are one of the heavy favorites to win the entire league this year. So, yeah, but Raleigh won that game 27-22. It was a very fun game down to the end. Jacksonville just ran out of gas, so to speak, and Raleigh took the game.
Yeah, I mean, do you think if Tampa Bay had Misha Freystarter, do you think that they would have beaten Raleigh in this game?
It probably would have been a bit closer. As far as Misha Freystarter on Raleigh goes, I feel they're definitely using him as a defensive player, like Tampa Bay did in their second season with him. He's not really that much of an offensive player anymore. Is he a big factor? Yes, he's a tall factor. He's a very tall factor. I mean, he towers over most people on the field. And as we all remember from watching Jacksonville / Tampa Bay in the past, they are in love with just throwing up prayers and Misha Freystarter coming down with them. He does own the regular season record for goals in the season with 97. Who knows if that'll be broken again? Probably will at some point, but he is a big factor, and it probably would have been closer. I don't know if they would have beaten them, but it definitely would have been. It wouldn't have been a 5-point game. We're talking like 1 or 2 points here.
Okay, I like that. And any other insight on that game, or should we head out to the Midwest?
The only other insight that I can give on this game is the South needs to watch out for both of these teams. Defensively, these two teams are looking like the strongest defensive units in the AUDL right now, especially Raleigh with these tall people. These two teams are looking like the powerhouses in the South this year. That's all I have left.
Okay, awesome. So we'll head out to the Midwest, which is my neck of the woods. So Indianapolis Alley Cats played the Detroit Mechanics in first game of the year for the Midwest Division, and what can you say? Indy kind of dominated Detroit, but Detroit has a little bit better defense this year. That's what I'm looking out for. They probably won't get very many wins, but their defense has gotten a lot better than it used to be. I remember when Minnesota put up 45 against them, and my friend was at that game, and that was fun. No, but this game finished Indianapolis 24, Detroit 12. So it wasn't really a close game, but it seemed like Detroit, was getting better, and that's always good to see. More parity in the league. Cameron Brock for Indianapolis had 5 goals, and Channing Watson had 3 goals for Detroit. Now, when your top goal scorer has 3, that's never a very good sign. But yeah, what can I say? And one of the guys on Detroit's team, number 11, Andrew Sjogren, is actually one of my friends. So yeah, I'm kind of cheering for Detroit, even though Minnesota are my boys. So yeah, those were the games from last week. So if we want to move on to our outlook on the games for this week, we're gonna start in the South Division, and there are 2 games, right, James?
Yes, there are. There are 2 games. These will be games to look at because we have both of the teams in the South that played last week playing different teams in this game. And again, these are all I feel like these are all going to be teams that are fighting for the playoffs, including Austin. Boston's not playing this weekend. So we have Raleigh versus Dallas, and boy, isn't this always a fun game to watch. Starting last season, when I felt like the South Division actually became competitive, and Dallas wasn't just going to roll over everyone. Now, last year the season series ended with Raleigh beating Dallas in the entire season series 2-1, and of course Dallas ended up winning the Southern Division final by a lot. Um, However, this past is the past, and now we are in the present. Raleigh's looking a lot stronger. Dallas has lost a lot of players. Dylan Freechild, that is his name. Dylan Freechild, they don't have Dylan Freechild anymore. They don't have Kurt Gibson anymore. I'm pretty sure they still have Jimmy Mickle, though. It's
Yeah, I think
I'm
you're
pretty sure
right.
they still have Cassidy Rasmussen. But and there's one more player whom I can't think of. But they still have a couple of returning players and and new talent rookies. But this is not the same Dallas from 2006, from 2017, and definitely not the same Dallas 2016. They're looking a lot more vulnerable, a lot more beatable this year. And with Raleigh just adding more firepower, I have to pick Raleigh in this game. Of course, any given weekend, any given team can win, but I think Raleigh takes this one. They're still playing at home. Raleigh is generally a strong team at home, and I think this is the best way to start off the season. Is 2-0. So yeah, I have Raleigh over Dallas, and then we have Atlanta going to Tampa Bay for Jacksonville's first ever for the Cannons. I said Jacksonville for the Cannons' first ever game in Tampa Bay, and this these 2 teams generally put up great games. It's not exactly an established rivalry in the UDL, but they always put up great games. Now the Cannons, I'm pretty sure, have the overall series record. I don't really know the entire score, but I know that the Cannons have one more game than the Hustle have. So, so like I said, this should be a great game. I feel like the Cannons win this one. Even without Misha Freystarter, they still have a lot of players. They still have the same scheme. That if you watch them, they're still a team that loves defense. They're still a team that love. Now, one thing I will say about the Cannons is they're not so much the hucking team that they've been in the past. We've all seen them just like love to throw discs up. And watching their game against the Flyers, they did not send up a bunch of deep passes. They were actually working the disc down the field. That's something we're not used to seeing from the Cannons. It's a new offensive scheme. We'll see how it works later down in the season. There's not that much hype about Atlanta going on right now. I do know that the person who left the Night Watch last year to go to Atlanta is now the Night Watch again, and I forgot his name, and I'm upset, but I actually like him now again. But I have the Cannons over Atlanta in this game. Before I keep rambling, Cannons over Atlanta in Tampa Bay.
Okay, good stuff there. I won't comment since the South is not my forte, but what you said made quite a bit of sense there. Now, moving on to the West Division, we have 2 games in the West. We have 2 games in the Midwest, and one interdivision game between the two, and I'll get to that later. But The first game is the Bay Area rivalry between San Jose and San Francisco. Now, San Francisco won the division last year, and San Jose was kind of a dark horse team to make the playoffs with Sean Hamm getting a bunch of defense. And, you know, not a lot has gone on with San Francisco this year. They still have Davis, an absolute beast, and they still have quite a few other good players of note. I can't name them off the top of my head, but I think that San Francisco is going to continue this dominance of the West for a little bit. I don't really see anyone stepping up, and so to say. And then San Diego versus LA, and yeah, Southern California rivalry here. You know, I mean, the Chargers went from San Diego to LA. Just trying to get anything we can here to make a rivalry, right? So yeah, the LA Aviators, very good. Last year they surprised me. I didn't think they were going to have anything to do with the playoff hunt, and they surprised me, and so did the Growlers actually. So I think this is going to be a better game than people anticipate, but I think LA is going to pull it out. Now moving on to the Midwest, quite a few good games. We have Madison Radicals versus the Indianapolis Alley Cats, who already played. And then we have Pittsburgh Thunderbirds versus the Detroit Mechanics. Now, Madison is always just the powerhouse in the Midwest. I hate it. Minnesota needs to get it once, I tell you. But, yeah, Madison is just always good, always returning good players. If Andrew were here, he could name about 70 of them, but he's not. But, yeah, I mean, Madison, what can you say? Just solid defense and solid offense, and that's what wins them division championships every year. And I don't see that changing this year. I think Madison is going to beat Indianapolis this game, even though Indianapolis actually played pretty well against Detroit. But, I mean, yet again, it is Detroit. And now moving on to the second game, we have the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds versus Detroit. And I'm going to say this right now. This is the battle for last place in the Midwest Division. Pittsburgh lost their two best players in Tyler DiGirolamo and Max Thorne. I mean, those are two superstars. And, Chicago's gotten better. Indianapolis has gotten better. I just don't see any improvement or even stability from the Thunderbirds. So I see them dropping down. But, they still are above Detroit, although I'd love my boy Andrew to get some goals in this game. But yeah, Pittsburgh to win in this game. And then, I'd say our favorite game of the week. It's going to be really interesting. We got my boys, the Minnesota Wind Chill, heading out to Seattle. And this is going to be an insane game. And I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, obviously you can't play a game in Minnesota right now. We still have 2 feet of snow on the ground, but so head out to Seattle where it's 50 and rainy every day. So yeah, but I mean, this is going to be, I think, an absolutely great game to watch. I mean, Minnesota returning, the highest scoring pair of players in Ryan Osgar and Josh Klain, very good players. Minnesota, very good defense. I mean, that's just kind of what all our sports teams are known for, I'd say. And then Seattle is just kind of a mixture of, high quality offensive chances and shutting opponents down when they need to. They're very efficient, both on the offensive and defensive side. And I think this is going to be a great game. But, Minnesota, that defense is so hard to break down. Seattle's never seen it before. I think this goes Minnesota's way. What do you think?
Well, I did just do a bit of, they did just drop the Western Division preview on the AUDL page. And I noticed that Seattle doesn't have Khalif El-Salam anymore. And for those of you who know anything about Seattle Ultimate, know who Khalif El-Salam is and what he does for Seattle's Ultimate teams. So him being gone, I mean, they still have Mark Burton. They still have a lot of good players and Seattle's just known for their ultimate community regardless. But I think Khalif Al-Salam, especially since they didn't make the playoffs last year, I think losing him is just even more of an obstacle that they're going to have to overcome. And I just don't feel, and you know, whether or not they overcome it this season is going to be yet be seen. I just think it's not going to come together for them in the first game. So I have to agree with Ben on this one, which is a rarity, but I'm going to have to pick Minnesota, like you said.
There we go. There we go. All right, and you know, 2 more games this week, and let's hear your opinion on those out in the East.
Okay, guys, I'm actually going to go a bit out of order here as far as dates go because there is a game on the 7th and a game on the 8th with Montreal making a road trip in the United States. But the game on the 7th is the AUDL game of the week on Stadium. So I'm gonna just talk about that last. But the second game of the road trip is going to be Montreal versus Philadelphia. The funny thing is, everyone knows Philadelphia is not generally a good team, but somehow, you know, I know they went winless last season, but they always seem to play their best games against Montreal. I just don't know whether it's just because they don't like Montreal or they just have the matchups that allow them to play great against Montreal. I mean, for everyone who knows sports, you know, sometimes having a great team isn't all. I mean, matchups are a big part of it. I mean, let's look at hockey for a second. Nashville is the best in the Central, and yet they somehow always do bad against Minnesota. Dang it, Ben. Anyways.
You know, what can I say? What can I say?
Anyways. So, call me crazy, but I'm going to pick Philadelphia to win this game. I mean, they're coming up. There's only 2 winless teams last year in the AUDL. Did Detroit go win? I don't think Detroit went winless last year, did they? They did not. They did not. It was only...
No, they beat Chicago.
Yeah, it was only Nashville. Gosh darn it.
You tried to forget. You tried. Never forget.
It was only Nashville and Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia breaks their winless streak at home against Montreal. They got the crowd behind them. They have a new coach. They have everything they want right now, and I think this is their time to rise, as Phoenix do. They're coming off of an Eagles Super Bowl. The 76ers are going to make the playoffs in the NBA. The Flyers are doing their thing in the NHL. So come on, Phoenix. So what are y'all doing? Come on.
Yeah, I was going to say, you better not mention the Phillies because that doesn't apply to your situation at all. They're garbage.
So come on, Phoenix. What are you guys doing? Let's rise in Philadelphia. Join your sports brethren. And now for the Watch Stadium game of the week, we have the DC Breeze hosting the Montreal Royale. This was the first round game last year in the East, of course, with DC winning. It was funny because in the season series, Montreal actually swept DC, so it made it interesting. But of course, playoffs are always an entirely different story. This is one of those games where you look at it and you really just don't know because DC is the perennial second seed in the East. Perennial second seed. That's sad to say, but I mean it's a playoffs. I mean, see, DC's made the playoffs 3 times in their franchise history. Montreal has made it twice. These teams met once in the playoffs. So these teams, they know each other a lot. I mean, so does everyone else in every division. It's just there's no real rival. I don't feel any real rivalry between these two. It just feels like they just play the game like you would any like interdivisional game, but they're not interdivisional. They're just kind of non-existent around each other. There's no real fire in their games. There's no emotion. I'm picking DC to win this just because they're at home and they're generally the better team, even though Montreal swept them last year. DC did win the playoffs, and I just haven't heard any hype about Montreal this year. So I'm picking DC in this game just because of the home field advantage, I guess. There's not really much to say about this game, other than the fact it's going to be on Stadium. So.
Okay, so James predicting the Montreal Royale to go 0-2 in the first weekend.
Yeah.
Bold predictions there, but to keep this video under 20 minutes, I think we're going to wrap it up there. probably what we're going to do is we're going to do another video soon predicting the, or maybe we'll add it on to next week's video if we have time, of doing, who's going to finish in the top 3 for each division. We didn't really get to do a league preview, but be on the lookout for that. So excited Ultimate is back, and we hope you are too. So hope you all have a great night, and we will talk to you all after this weekend. Good night, everybody.